Hello, welcome to Bio 3. We will start the cellular respiration. So, what is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration is basically after we eat, then how does our body convert the food that we eat into energy, ATP. So we will focus on how our body uses glucose to convert glucose into ATP. And ATP is a form of energy that our body uses. So cellular respiration occurs in all living organisms. Both autotroph and heterotroph. This is a very, I would say this is one of the most common misunderstanding of undergraduate biology. If I ask you a question, true or false, plants do photosynthesis in daytime and cellular respiration in nighttime, and animals do cellular respiration in daytime and nighttime. Is it true or false? Many of you will say that it is true, but it should be false because plants do photosynthesis and cellular respiration in daytime and cellular respiration in nighttime. In other words, plants do cellular respiration 24/7, just like animals. Because as long as the organism is alive or living, then the organism will make ATP. We have two phases, anaerobic and aerobic. Anaerobic occur in cytoplasm, aerobic occur in mitochondria. This is something that you need to know. Anaerobic one is basically what we call glycolysis. Aerobic one is the one, the rest of it, we'll talk about them. And cellular respiration is a Nobel Prize winning discovery. So the question is, where does the fuel of our cells' daily activity come from? Well, it comes from food. That's why we need to eat. When we eat, then we will get glucose, and then from glucose we can go through the cellular respiration, which has three parts: glycolysis, citric acid cycle, and electron transport chain. But in here there is we call it, I personally call it intermediate step. It is the formation of something called acetyl-CoA. So in this slide, it will define cellular respiration in four parts. And both amino acid and fatty acid can be converted and to go into cellular respiration. Metabolism. What is metabolism? Metabolism is basically the sum of all chemical reaction in the body. But some of the reaction, they are called catabolism, some of the reaction called anabolism. Catabolism is basically breaking down. Anabolism is building up. So one way you can memorize the differences is that cat break down everything. They destroy everything in your place. So cat is catabolism is broken down. And we learned about this at the beginning of the semester. The three nutrients we refer to: carbohydrate, fat, or lipid into protein. Carbohydrate, when we break down carbohydrate, it will become glucose. When we break down lipid or fat, it will become glycerol or fatty acids. When we break down protein, it will become amino acids. So glucose is a monomer for carbohydrate, glycerol, and fatty acid. They are also monomers, and then amino acid is the monomer for protein. We learned about this. When carbohydrate is broken down to glucose, what do we call that? We call this hydrolysis. I hope you still remember hydrolysis from exam 1. In other words, hydrolysis is one form of chemical reaction under catabolism. Remember that? Hydrolysis is one form of reaction under catabolism. So this is the overall equation I want you to memorize. And yes, you need to memorize. So C6H12O6 is glucose. Glucose plus 6 oxygen becomes 6 carbon dioxide and 6 water. It's something that I want you to remember. And regarding to the ATP and ADP, okay, number of ATP and ADP. Okay. Cellular respiration will produce 36 to 38 ATP. Okay, this is a number that you need to memorize. And all living organisms, no matter the living organism live on the land or live in the water, they all do cellular respiration, including the plants under the water. As long as they're living. As long as they're living, then they make ATP. So, cellular respiration. Have you ever thought about why we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide? Have you thought about why? Because oxygen is one of the input molecules, one of the 2 input molecules for cellular respiration. And carbon dioxide is one of the 3 output molecules for cellular respiration. That's why we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. And oxygen, of course, go through the lungs, and then our lungs have a lot of capillaries for oxygen to go in. And carbon dioxide, right, they are produced by tissues, because our tissue, like our muscle, they do cellular respiration and produce carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide goes to the lungs again. Of course, all these are by blood, travel by blood. And then they will leave the body through the lungs, and of course also through the capillaries in the lung. So let's give you an overview of the cellular respiration. Yes, the equation that I asked you to memorize, C6H12O6 plus 6 oxygen, become a 6 carbon dioxide and 6 water. That one you need to memorize for sure. Okay, the overview of the cellular respiration. Other than just memorizing one equation, you need to know some basics. For example, we have energy stored in glucose. How? If you have been following my lecture, you should remember that I told you covalent bond. Covalent bond stores energy, and covalent bond inside the glucose molecule stores energy. So by breaking the covalent bonds in glucose, energy is released, and then we use the energy released to make ATP. So it is in the covalent bond. And yes, releasing of the energy in the glucose is not okay at once. It's not at once. It's not a one-step process, you know. It's not that efficient. Our body takes many steps to do it. And as glucose is broken down, ATP is built up. Well, I kind of this sentence is kind of weird. As it's broken down, ATP is built up. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's true. I'll take that's true. Yeah. In glycolysis, we make 2 ATPs and then after glycolysis, it goes to 2 citric acid cycle simultaneously. So each citric acid cycle make 1 ATP. So in other words, after glycolysis, we also make 2 ATP, and then each citric acid cycle goes to the electron transport chain. Electron transport chain make approximately 32 to 34 ATPs. So what it says here, the energy released by removal of a phosphate group is used by the cell. What it means is it is referring to ATP. ATP becomes ADP. Adenosine triphosphate become adenosine diphosphate. And a phosphate, we call it inorganic phosphate group. So this is what it means. And then only 40%, yes, is not efficient. 40% of the potential energy in glucose is converted to ATP. The rest of it is lost as heat. In other words, 60% of the energy becomes heat. My question is for you, why do we lose so much energy as heat? Why don't we just use maybe 100% of the so-called potential energy stored in the glucose, in the covalent bond, to use 100% of those energy to make ATP? Isn't that more efficient? I'll give you 5 seconds to think about this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. The reason is that there are 2 reasons actually. When we release heat, then we can use the heat energy to drive other reaction to move forward. What does it mean? Remember when we do high school chemistry, we always use the so-called Bunsen burner, to heat up water, heat up other chemical reaction. It's similar idea. Other chemical energy other chemical reaction in our body also require heat to do it. That's why the 60% heat that is lost, we can use them to, like a Bunsen burner, to drive other chemical reaction forward. And second reason is that we are isotherms, meaning that our body is kept at a constant temperature. How do we do this? Well, the 60% of the heat, the heat generated, the heat that is lost can be used to keep our body at a constant temperature. That's the reason we need to eat all the time. That's the drawback. We need to eat all the time so that we have the energy so that we get energy to produce heat to keep our body warm. On the other hand, they said that the potential is converted motion of the car. Yes, gasoline. Only 25% to make the car move. In other words, at first we thought that with 40% of the food will be converted into ATP, we think that is low, but it is actually lower for us to drive the car with gasoline. So why do we need to